You're listening to Moonhawk Studios Presents. All right, welcome to another edition of Moonhawk Studios Presents. I am your host, Mac Paladin. With me in the studio, as always, is my good friend Adam.
Hello.
All right, we got Petty Fan kicking around here somewhere.
I'm not dead yet.
The Golix, as always, with his amazing hat.
Yes.
Twilight Winter.
No.
And we got Elemental Ogre here, who has to go before everybody else in the news, I guess.
I'm so happy for you. I'm going to clap with my teeth.
That's a whole story all by itself. I don't know. I think we should do the rotating. I think we should do the rotating cast members on the Moonhawk Studios Presents tag, starting very soon. Interestingly enough, I wanted to note that this is episode 11 of season 12, which means we are now officially on the hump.
Oh.
On?
Yep. Well, next week we'll be over the hump. Because,
Oh, gotcha. For the season. Okay.
Yes, because this is officially the midpoint of the new season format, where we do
Right.
22 episodes a season.
Right.
23 if we do a Christmas special.
Fragments, by the way, it's still 26 episodes.
Yeah. Well, I figured this gives us a little more flexibility for those off weeks that I keep having to take due to life.
True.
All right. Let's see. So let's allege, as always, that we have a great show for everybody tonight. And who wants to start with the news?
I do.
All right, Ogre, take it away.
Well, let's see. Recordings have been going along as normal. And it's gotten really hot for some reason in April. I don't know why, but I'm pretty sure 97% of us know why, and the other 3% are sitting with their hands over their ears going, la la la, I'm not paying attention, la la la. And also I can clap with my teeth finally,
Hey,
because I finally got my dentures.
you're no longer gumming your food, huh?
Nope. No longer doing that. I go in tomorrow for a routine cleaning, and I may have them try to see if they can tighten some stuff around, because even with denture cream in, that's still kind of could be better, could be worse, but hey, I finally have them, so I can't completely complain.
We've come to find out that chewing is not nearly as overrated as everybody thinks.
No, it is not. Also, neither is dental care, so constantly brush your teeth. Even while you're
Seriously.
eating, just get in there, go.
You're like, take a bite of taco, floss.
Every time you take a bite, floss, rinse. Every time, no matter.
It's like all of my food has a minty aftertaste. Oh, man.
Sometimes cinnamon.
There we go.
But that's my Frieza saga over with. So on to Petty Fan's Cell saga.
Well, hold on. Before we get to Petty Fan, let's go back to the top of the order here. Adam, what have you got cooking?
Oh, that ruins every joke.
Nothing I'd really want to talk about.
Uh-oh.
Like family dramatics. Like,
It's especially bad when you adopt a British accent.
yeah. Well, my brother may get divorced.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I'm like, there's a whole litany of problems over there, and it's causing some stress.
All right.
So,
Well, I won't pressure you to share, so just,
no, I'm not going to share details of that here.
Yeah.
Or, it's like, but yeah, suffice it to say, it's especially stressful because, well, it'd be his second divorce.
Oh well.
Yeah, it's like, and a lot of the same problems are happening over again. So,
Mhm.
like I said, it's not a happy situation. I'm just glad it's a distant situation because last time this happened about 8 years ago or whenever 2008 was, uh, everyone was kind of caught in the maelstrom, including myself. That wasn't fun.
Hmm.
So, outside of that, nothing really to mention. Yeah. I'll pass along to Petty Fan because, well, if there's bad news,
Yeah, Cell Saga.
So, as I mentioned on the previous show, I'm going to need knee surgery.
Ugh, that
Yeah.
blows.
Apparently, the tendons in my knee aren't symmetrical, so that's what's been causing the pain I've had in my knee. So, that's going to be enjoyable. I don't know how long I'm going to be, out for the show. If when they do the surgery, it'll be like I'll be up and around enough to do the show, or if I'm going to be on bed rest for a few weeks. Won't know that for a while because I see the doctor March 20 or not March, May 22nd. So that's when we're probably gonna see about getting this scheduled and how long recovery is gonna be and all that jazz.
Mhm.
Other than that, just been playing video games. Also, my dad had hemorrhoid surgery yesterday, which was fun.
Well, I bet that was a pain in the ass.
But Tish, I really need to. I need to find some way to make my computer have a soundboard when we're doing the show, don't I?
It's worse because you did the badum tish part.
At least someone gets it.
Oh man.
But yeah, so
I have that soundboard on my iPad, which I'm holding in my hand right now, and I didn't even think about it. Oh,
good
go on.
job. But yeah, so he's been off work and been driving us insane. So that's not been fun. Other than that, I don't think I have anything else to report.
All right, Golix, what have you got cooking?
Well, I won't bother you with anything in great detail, but work has been kind of stressful lately, and I might be losing some hours slash the extra hours that I'd had added recently apparently weren't fully approved, and someone noticed, so I have to not work more or something. I don't know. So
Well,
I don't know, more free time would be good, but it also means less pay, and our health insurance is coming up again, and that's both the premiums for that are going up. So
well, that blows.
yep, and there are some other complicated things going on. Anyway, it's not a whole lot of fun, and it's been kind of stressful. Otherwise, things have been going fairly okay. We actually had it was really warm like a few days ago, but the last few days have been like in the 40s, low 50s, and today there was rain, but I guess it's supposed to get warmer again, so I don't know.
All right.
Otherwise, not a whole lot interesting going on in this end.
All right, Twilight.
Well, the weather's been pretty pleasant for a while, besides the occasional rain. And with all the pleasant weather, we have gotten a new cat. A little orange tabby, it's a stray. We don't really know what we're going to do with it quite yet. Besides that, been playing games. That's about it.
All right. Well, let's see. We took last week off, so some developments have occurred, of course, in the last 2 weeks. I have decided that to further our goal of monetizing our channel and thus selling out fully to our YouTube overlords,
Mhm.
I'm going to start adding some shows to my channel. I've already come up with a couple of ideas. My main weekly show idea is called Max Mind, MAC''S, for those of you who are being smartasses and snarky out there. Max Mind, MAX, that's weird, man. Max Mind, I don't get it. Yeah, I figured you might not.
Well, it would be better than Min Mind.
Yeah. The gist of that is going to be, of course, observations and ruminations about various things. But I also plan to have a local artist feature as often as I'm able. My friend and coworker Fawaz, he plays a number of exotic Middle Eastern instruments and is also a pretty killer flamenco guitar player. You can find him on YouTube under Faraz Zain, Zein, and quite a skilled musician, I have to say. And so he's going to come over because it's kind of funny because I live across the street from where I work. I don't think I've ever been this close to work in my entire life. I mean, aside from working from home, of course. But, I mean, my actual job is right across the street. So I'm walking every day, which is actually doing wonders for my waistline. And so, it's like, all right, well, let's get
And
off
you live in
work.
Arizona, so the weather usually isn't bad enough to, you need to,
Well, summer is
or
coming.
you'd have trouble. Yeah, I guess in summer
The
you might want like a
opposite-
fan or something.
Yeah, you know how they're always afraid of winter in Game of Thrones? Yeah, the opposite of that is true here.
What's that? You like to roast?
It would be more
Beware
like,
beware
sweats
the
up the
kind of
alley?
sandy beige walkers.
I would say probably more accurately that we are set to broil here. Of course, as Ogre would say, Ohio has winter and construction.
Yes, I've already seen some construction. Hell, the road to my dentist already had construction.
So they're drilling the roads while you're getting your teeth drilled.
Pretty much.
Great. So Max Mind, the basic premise is that I'm going to try to personalize my presence a little more, so that it's not just my disembodied voice every week. And the format will be anywhere from 3 to 10 minutes. It's not any kind of strict adherence to some kind of nostalgic YouTube philosophy. It's just I'm not sure that I can be entertaining all by myself for 10 minutes. The other thing that I'm planning on doing is a sort of, I guess you could call it like director's commentary for the movies and programs that I'm going to be making, since we will be sharing the bulk of our video content with Starship Moonhawk and other properties that I'm working on YouTube. My goal is to actually start a show called Mac Views the Dailies. And for those of you who are in the know on film terminology, watching the dailies means that you're basically sitting in the editing booth going over hours and hours and hours of literally hundreds of takes of the filmed throughout the day in order to find the perfect set of shots to construct your film. My show, my featurette, if you will, is something that could be included as sort of a DVD extra type deal when we actually release the final cut of the film. And I also plan on doing a special episode where I talk about the differences between what I call the YouTube cut and the final cut of the film, because the Mercadian Affair movie will actually be presented differently for the film festivals than it will be on YouTube and Vimeo. So when we get the whole thing, all 7 parts put together, the timing and pacing is actually going to be adjusted for a single viewing as opposed to watching it as 7 individual episodes.
Nifty.
Yeah. But one of the things that I was actually I'm getting ready right now is I have a new video clip from Act 1 that just shows the Horizon in orbit, the Starship Horizon in orbit around the planet Mercade. And in the comic, it's presented. I put together a halfway decent looking planet, but I got to say my so-called 3D model is more than a decade old. And so one of the things that Keith and I did when we had our last movie making session was we turned it into an actual practical planet model. So the planet actually rotates slightly, and the horizon it actually looms kind of like the Enterprise in Star Trek The Next Generation. So they would show those close-up shots of the ship, and you could see the slice of the planet in the background moving ever so slightly, and there's a little bit of movement of the ship so that it gives the viewer's eye something to be attracted to. And just for shits and giggles, we also threw running lights on the ship. So they blink in sequence. There's also a kind of subharmonic sound effect of the Horizon's engines, but they sound different than the Star Trek Starship engines. So right now, I have kind of mixed feelings about it, but I'll go into greater detail on that on my Dailies show. Not the Daily Show, my Dailies show.
Mm-hmm.
Show isn't even daily anyway.
Right, exactly. So that's some of the ideas that I have for additional content for YouTube, which I think now it's probably an appropriate time for me to segue into one of our topics for tonight, which is the latest happenings on YouTube. Anybody want to start this off, or should I just dive right in?
I say dive right in.
I don't know. I think this is going to end up going down the YouTubes one way or another.
All right. Well, of course, as many of you know, YouTube has changed a lot of their policies regarding monetization, largely in part due to the fact that there have been a exodus of advertisers because of content issues, specifically issues like JonTron and PewDiePie and, well, let's just come right out and say it, Nazis.
White supremacy, hate speech, all that terrible stuff.
Right.
And
Now,
and as it turns out, advertisers don't want to be associated with fucking Nazis.
Turns out
Yeah.
they're bad for the brand. I mean, who knew?
Yeah. I mean, it's great if your target audience is Nazis, but not so good for the general public. And you really start to find out exactly how fringe these elements are when you start looking at things like channel views, which is the first way that they've started impacting creators. Creators with below a certain number of channel views do not get to monetize their videos until they meet a certain threshold. Now, I got to tell you honestly, I had monetization turned on about 5.5 years ago, and with the channel views that I have, that was worth 17 cents. So
That's like, wait, how often does that recur?
Well, that was off of a single video. Oddly enough, my most popular video prior to the Drac and Seabass interview was my Kathleen Sanders promo for Microsoft Game Studios way back in season 4.
That was a long time ago.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, he
and
no
that
longer
was
there.
Yeah. I mean, that was 6 years ago. And what's interesting about that is that was the only video where I had monetization turned on that ever generated any revenue. And it was only 17 cents. So, for small-time creators who haven't met the 10,000 hit threshold, it's like, okay, and? Because you weren't really making any money anyway. I mean, my Uncle John has a video with 19,000 views on it, and he's got monetization on his channel, and he says his take on a monthly basis like $8. But this isn't about I think the point I really need to drive home though is that, guys, this isn't about you. I'm talking to you, YouTubers. This whole situation about flipping off monetization and the losses of revenue and so on and so forth is not about you as individuals. It's about the greater good. It's about stopping the bad guys. Yeah. And I hate to say it, but yes, it is a form of censorship. But at the same time, I get it, because this YouTube is not a free speech platform. It's a corporate environment, and they have to protect their brand.
Yeah. It's also unfortunate that the only messaging that they're listening to is money, because a lot of
yeah, ideally some of the issues they were having before would have been issues, but it's only when it starts being a money problem that they want to do anything about it.
Yeah. Okay. Let Adam finish his point.
Yeah, because certainly individuals have gone to YouTube about this, and they got jack all in terms of protection. But when the advertisers start pulling their actual ad dollars away, and YouTube stands to lose what, 750 million? Yeah, that's gonna cause some actions. I mean, hell, you can see how powerful a corporate boycott can be. It got Bill O'Reilly fired.
Yeah.
Like,
well,
and he was Fox News's golden goose. So,
well, that and the sexual harassment.
Yeah.
It's not. They didn't give a shit about the sexual harassment. It's because the corporate sponsors found out that they basically paid $13 million in hush money,
right,
that it was too much for their taste, and they took their money elsewhere.
So it's not the sexual harassment. It's that people found out that there was a cover-up of the sexual harassment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like, remember, and if you're surprised by this, it's Fox News. I'm like, this was run by a Roger Ailes until last year, who was also ousted for sexual harassment. I'm pretty sure that there was a culture of sexual harassment going on at the place.
Right.
Call it a hunch when the top guy and the face of the network were pulling this shit. So, point of the matter is, money talks, bullshit walks.
Yeah, and even my mildest anti-corporatist rant would remind everybody that corporations are not people. They are an entity whose sole responsibility and sole moral obligation is to make money for their stockholders. So if you're expecting any kind of sympathy from corporate Goliaths, if you're expecting any kind of righteousness from them, think again.
Yeah, until someone legally redefines what a corporation is. If
even
corporations count
then,
as people, they're basically obligated to be what would be
even then, we're going back. The British practically invented corporations as we know them today, and going back to that, remember, if you study anything in business school, a corporation's sole responsibility is to its stockholders. So any moral decisions about what they do comes from the fact that any wrongdoing or malfeasance on the part of the corporation is a monetization issue. If by doing wrong it causes public outcry, which in turn hurts the company's bottom line, then action must be taken. If public outrage does not negatively impact bottom line, but somehow enhances it, then keep doing what you're doing. And that's basically the two cardinal rules of running a corporation. So the only thing I can get mad at YouTube about is laziness, to be honest with you. It would be great. And they did comment that they are responding to this. So I'll give credit tentatively, pending action, in that they have actually come out and said that they are going to dedicate more personnel to the actual review process, which is one thing. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, unlike, say, Twitter, they actually have some business sense, because, obviously all this shit all this white supremacy shit's been a problem on social media as well. But Twitter, they really haven't cleaned shit up because they're in a kind of a paradox mode. I'm like, they get rid of the Nazis, they significantly reduce their user base. But here's the thing: they're trying to sell out to larger corporate entities. Like Disney was briefly interested in them until they saw, the Nazi problem, and they were like, "Nope."
Twitter has its own unique set of branding issues. I mean, just look at all of the snuff photos, the murder porn, the actual pornography, and you can see why a family-friendly corporation like Disney would want to stay away from them as far as they can.
Well, it's also the same kind of problem Reddit has been having. Like Reddit, for all of its awfulness, used to be even more awful with some of the subreddits that whose names I can't even mention because they're racial epithets.
Right.
Or they were engaged in fat shaming, or just really horrible stuff. But they
basically anything you see dwelling in the basements at Hole.
Yeah. And this was all allowed because Reddit at the time was all about free speech absolutism, and this is the logical extreme.
Right.
But they cut that shit down with the CEO change, and also trying to go more corporate. The point of the matter is, I'm like, you can't be corporate and business friendly and be in bed with the Nazis. Now, it turns out that that's kind of a really bad combination.
Yeah.
Doesn't really work out for anyone.
Yeah, I don't really see any potential upside there. If comic books as we know it. This was an interesting thing I noticed. I was reading an article. I can't remember if it was on Bleeding Cool or one of those comic book blogs or whatever, but they were talking about this Indonesian artist who had put in a bunch of subversive Quran verses into the artwork of, I think it was X-Men Unlimited.
Oh.
You know what I'm talking about, don't you?
Oh, that stuff lately?
Yeah. Like, that guy got rightfully fired because...
Oh, absolutely.
It was anti-Semitic shit.
Yeah, and to do that, I mean, let's take a look at the comic book industry as we know it. The major comic book companies that we know, DC, Marvel, and so on and so forth, exist largely because Jewish immigrants came to these shores and wanted to tell stories about beating up Nazis. And they wanted to create superheroes that people could actually identify with. So putting in anti-Semitic Quran verses into comic book art, first of all, it's totally the wrong platform. It's very inappropriate. And on top of that, it was incredibly tone deaf, especially since it was a scene about Kitty Pryde, who's Jewish, announcing her leadership of the X-Men. And you've got 5:51 all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
God, what's going to happen next? Captain America's going to turn out to be a Nazi?
Well, there have been even worse developments, and apparently the latest thing is that actually the Nazis won World War II with help from Hydra, and the Allies used the Cosmic Cube to rewrite reality.
Yeah.
So
Okay. You start this Final Fantasy XI alternate history is the real history bullshit with me, and then people start getting hurt.
Don't shoot the messenger, dude.
You want to talk about tone deafness? You had some Marvel exec saying that the push for diversity was failing.
Oh, that wasn't it the VP of marketing or something like that?
Something like that. It was like people don't want female superheroes. People don't want people of color. And cites a bunch of books whose sales numbers are not good.
And that
It's
is
also
and that's bullshit though, because those the one some of the diversity titles are some of the ones that are doing better.
it's
Right.
also you mean this has nothing to do with your shit crossover that was called Civil War II? You mean it had nothing to do with turning Captain fucking America into a Nazi? You know, or the other 400 shit heel moves you did?
Yeah,
It's
I
really
mean,
kind of sad because over the last few years, the two major comic companies have basically been taking turns being kind of okay at progressive stuff and then being like taking it all back and being really terrible.
it's
Yeah.
you know, the really the part that really smacks of awful is the fact that this guy does not recognize the fact that the reason that those so-called diverse titles are doing poorly is because they tried to play it safe from their perspective. Notice how I qualify that.
Mm-hmm.
They
Well,
put in a bunch of tone deaf bullshit. You know, it's like, honestly, the Muslim Ms. Marvel is one of their more popular diversification titles because the character's fucking awesome.
Yeah, she's probably going to be, you know, a Marvel Cinematic Universe movie eventually.
Good.
You know, the thing of it is, there's a deeper problem going on here, and that has to relate to how comics are distributed. You know, it all goes back to what happened in the 90s. And
The diamond monopoly deal.
even before that, the switch to direct markets, the switch to the comic book shops, and getting them off the newsstands. You know, that's basically locked comics into a very, very insular audience for 20, 25 years. You know, it's like, you know, being at the beck and call of, you know, fucking 30 somethings. You know,
This I read a this whole phenomenon comes down to the fact, you know, I read this, and I'm going to paraphrase this, so it's probably going to come out badly, but I'm going to just stumble through it. I can't remember if it was on Tumblr or Twitter or Facebook or where I saw it, but one of the folks I follow was talking about this, and it was they were commenting on an article where they were talking about misogyny in geek culture, and one of the more interesting aspects of it is, thanks to stuff like this, the editors of Marvel not understanding that their diversity is bullshit, or you know, moves on media platforms to curb Nazis and stuff like this. I think it was talking about cosplay, and one of the things that they were pointing out was that it's finally coming to light that geek culture had always championed the idea that, you know, oh, you know, the reason that I can't get a girl is, you know, these guys, you know, we'll call them Fedora Squad types, kept railing that, you know, oh, you know, we're part of geek culture because we can't get the girls because they're just not into the things that we're into. And it turns out that they rail against geek girls so much because it threatens their claim to the idea that women just aren't into this stuff, you know, and that's why they're isolated and that's why they're alone. And it blows the doors off that. It says, no, the truth of the matter is that the reason you can't get a girl, the reason that you're not awesome is because you're a fucking asshole. It has nothing to do with the fact that you're a part of geek culture, because now there are geek girls and there are gamer girls, and you just got to deal with that shit.
yeah.
And so
The problem is, I've seen how they deal with the problem. It
Yeah.
isn't.
How many of our
Yeah.
former friends have left the industry because of these assholes?
Good
yeah,
question.
Well, I'm saying these things all tie together. You know, this assault against geek culture, this idea that diversity in comics doesn't work, all comes from this. All comes from this misogynistic fear of people. I'm going to try to use this phrase correctly, but it's basically invading these guys' safe space bubbles and echo chambers, and they're like, oh, you know, oh, girls can't be here. It's, you know, it's like it's the, you know, you go back to, huh?
It's even more deep rooted than that. It's
they're invading their pity party.
well, no, it's also a societal failing with how we deal with masculinity and connecting it to sex. Like, you're not a real man unless you've had sex. You're not a man unless you get, you know, a girlfriend and, you know, married and all that stuff. And we're talking about a lot of people who would be framed as betas, as in people who have a lot of social awkwardness, a lot of inexperience, a lot of, you know, inability to connect with women on, you know, pretty much every level. And that's been allowed to fester.
Yeah. Toxic masculinity.
Yes. And here's the thing. As it turns out, white supremacist forces have been radicalizing these people just like they do with, just in the same way like Islamic terrorists do. Now,
first they're just the people who will listen to you, and then they're the people who agree with you, and then they're the people who you agree with.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden you're actually believing that the Ubermensch is a real thing and not just a fucking ironic joke. Now, but, you know, it's like even the ironic joke things are problematic. Because, you know, it's like, you know, racial humor, racist humor, and you know, sensitive subject. They're not something you can really approach with a blunt object and, you know, still be actually funny. You know, they're subjects that can actually be humorous and insightful in really skilled hands. And, you know, these people like PewDiePie, well before, you know, what happened a few months ago, he was the guy who got famous basically by shouting rape jokes. You know, that really only appealed to 14-year-olds who really dig that quote-unquote edgy shit. By the way, that continued until that torpedoed a Levi's deal with Machinima. So, yeah, PewDiePie has a history of torpedoing business deals.
You know, I've never watched a single PewDiePie video, and
Yes.
You're probably better for it.
Yeah.
I was about to say, and I never have any desire.
Yeah, I never had any desire to.
Once you
Never
start
had
on the,
sucker either.
you know, once you start on the path to the alt-right,
Then you start quoting Mein Kampf,
yeah, I was gonna make a Sith joke there, but I just I didn't have the heart.
Oh,
My you know.
Listen, Mac, only cis deal in absolutes.
You know, I was gonna make that joke, and Keith and I were talking about that the other day. We were working on the video, and I said, we were talking about the trailer to Star Wars Episode 8, and one of the things that we were talking about was, you know, Luke Skywalker. And Ogre, I'm sorry for arguing with you on that. I was wrong.
Yeah, who's the nerd now, bitch?
Yeah. But it was Luke Skywalker's line that the Jedi must end. And I was thinking about that for a minute, and I said, you know, thanks to the prequels, and of course Obi-Wan in the original trilogy, and to a lesser extent Yoda himself.
Yeah, the
really
Jedi are kind of full of shit.
Yeah, they're kind of dicks.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking, Lucas was trying to make some ham-fisted commentary about how, when you rise to a certain level, then decadence and decay becomes the result. And I was thinking to myself, maybe they're right. Maybe the Jedi were actually a parasite on the Force. That they were siphoning its power. They were this and that and the other thing. But I just thought it was interesting because honestly, everything that I've seen of the actual Jedi, nothing good can come from it. And they throw out sayings like, only a Sith deal in absolutes. And it's like, you realize, of course, that you just issued an absolute.
Yep.
You see, if he had just said only a Sith deals in such absolutes, I feel like he could have gotten away with the line.
Right. But it was like they were painting an entire group with a broad brush. Mace Windu himself, the dirty closeted little secret of the Jedi is that Mace Windu himself was actually a gray practitioner of the Force. That's why he had the purple lightsaber, was because he kind of delved into the dark powers just a little bit for quote unquote self-defense.
Yeah, no, his lightsaber style is very specifically well, it kind of uses the dark side, but you don't really let it in, so it's okay.
Oh, wow, okay.
Oh, so he's a Dark Knight.
Uh-oh, here we go.
But yeah,
Apparently
we'll
somebody doesn't
see.
get the Final Fantasy 14 reference.
I get it.
We'll see
Petty
when the
Kid
actual
said he
movie
is a
comes
Dark
out
Knight.
exactly what that line means, but there's plenty of stuff, like knowing what we now know about Jedi history, that, yeah, maybe we're better off without a lot of that stuff.
Yeah. Now, I don't want to go too far off onto a Star Wars tangent on that. I just thought I felt that one little observation kind of tied into our discussion about all this stuff. It's like moral decay and the collapse of society. So anyway, moving back to the subject at hand, what else can we say about this?
Like,
The racists and the misogynists are the most delicate of snowflakes.
oh jeez.
Hashtag MAGA.
I was going to say hashtag not wrong.
Like, so, it is truly amazing how they are the masters of projection.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm not the Nazi, you're the Nazi.
but I suppose it's fitting given that they, some of them still worship Carrot in Chief.
Oh, just call him. Look, let either call him Cheeto Hitler or call him Clownstick von Fuckface in honor of the late. I say this with air quotes. The late Jon Stewart, who thank God
The show was taken
makes-
to him too soon.
yeah, who thank God makes periodic appearances on the Late Show.
Mm-hmm.
He says, "I'm sitting here yelling at the animals on my farm."
In a suit? Yes, I like dressing up.
Oh man. I was gonna make another observation about this. Being born in the late '70s and growing up in the '80s, I got to witness this sort of interesting transitional period. When I was growing up, we had, and I'm going to use some salty language here, so I'm prefacing that beforehand before everybody gets upset about it, just to sort of illustrate the point here. But, in the 80s, we didn't think twice about dropping an N-bomb or singing the Michael Jackson as a fag song or, any of that kind of stuff. And, it really bothers me now because I have to listen to every generation saying really stupid stuff that we needed to call out. Oh, well, she's just old, so, she or he is just a product of their times and this and that and the other thing. Why does that make that acceptable?
It doesn't.
It doesn't. But somehow we throw that out there like it's some kind of excuse for being douchebags.
Well,
Here's the thing. That's a learned kind of behavior, and learned behavior can be unlearned.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just nobody wants to bother trying to change an old person's mind because
Hey, they're gonna die soon.
it's also because changing the mind of old people is a lot harder than young people. You know,
I had a funny experience or an interesting experience with that sort of. Apparently, my grandfather was pretty racist when my dad was growing up and stuff. But he did a really good job of learning to filter that stuff. And the only reason I ever even really learned about this is because he got pretty bad dementia before the end and the filters just kind of went away. But even if it is something that he learned, it was something that he then really put an effort to not propagate.
like I wouldn't be surprised if if my father was had race was racist in his own way. It's you know racial sensitivity dwindles the farther you go back.
Yeah.
As you noted, like it, like I don't think people really understand how much has changed in 20, 30 years in terms of culture.
You know, it's kind of interesting, because as I said, I'm also a product of my times, and so I was going to the public school system in Southern California. I was exposed to what, by today's standards, would be considered horrors of racial stereotyping and stuff like that. I went to a school that was 60% white, 39% Hispanic and or Latin, and 1% black. So
Yeah, I went to some pretty ethnically diverse schools. So.
we did have a number. We did have a number of people who had various Asian backgrounds and so on and so forth. But I mean, the mix was pretty stark. Southern California, because of our proximity to the southern border, was predominantly Latin and Hispanic. And Chula Vista, California, the city I grew up in, the racial divide was more about, I hate to say it this way, but brown and tan people than it was about black people and white people. It was kind of interesting, growing up in that environment. It gave me a very different perspective on the thing. But we used to say horrible things like, you get cut off by a driver from Baja California. Well, back in the 80s, they had light blue license plates, so we called them blue plate specials. It's just fucked up nonsense like that just becomes pervasive, and you don't realize it until somebody calls you out on it. And my greatest fear, going into the second half of my life here, is that if I do succumb to dementia, I know too much. So if I do start succumbing to dementia, I might just start spewing off a whole bunch of bullshit nonsense, and everybody gets the wrong idea about the kind of life that I live. Because oh, well, he's just revealing what he secretly thought. It's like, well, no, I'm an ADHD child, and I'm on the autistic spectrum, and guess what? When my mind starts to go, every single stream of consciousness I ever had is going to come to the front.
Mm-hmm.
Mac, you spilling bullshit, isn't that every week on MSP?
Pretty much. But, I'm not ashamed to go back and apologize for any wrongdoing that I've done. I'm not ashamed to try to make amends for not being a good ally.
Yeah, I'm like thinking about that. There were some incidents about 12 years ago that comes to mind.
Uh-oh.
Like, I'm not sure if you remember what happened.
Are we talking about on the lounge forums or somewhere else?
Yeah, the lounge forums. It's like, there's one incident that gnaws at me every now and again.
I can think of several that, in retrospect, if I had really understood what was going on, I would have handled it differently. But
well, this one involved a trans member of the community.
right. What's funny is I was thinking that exactly before you said it.
I'm like,
and we had a member of our community who's, by today's standards, would be considered the alt-right.
Mm-hmm. And we did the whole gender conformity thing, and the, you know, just not understanding what that all was about, because, well, in the year 2005,
It was
really was
yeah.
discussed like it is today.
The trans movement. I hate to generalize an era, but the transgender movement is kind of like the gay movement of the 70s.
Or the 90s.
Right. In that it has always been a thing, but we didn't acknowledge it on our radar until a large enough percentage of the population started basically coming out in order for us to recognize it. So we go back, 12, 15 years, go back to 2002 when our whole sort of creative and working relationship all began. And
2002, I think that was like just when it was like the last gasp of, using, certain gay slurs with no problem.
Yeah. So we were just kind of coming out of our cocoon at that point.
But yeah,
there was no protocol for handling this because it was new and it was scary.
Hell, it's still new and scary. Witness like the trans movement is the new frontier of bigotry, pure and simple. HB2 in North Carolina,
right.
that anti-trans bill in Texas, and so on and so forth.
And ironically, it actually has been getting some help, as it were, from certain parts of the other parts of the LGBTQ community.
True,
that they're like some radical feminists and stuff are still pretty anti-trans.
Well, that's another problem.
You're referring to trans exclusive radical feminists or TERFs.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm like that. Well, it's kind of dangerous to think. We tend to group the LGBT plus community together because in general they're all trying to fight for their rights and all that stuff, but it's not a monolith. In fact, it's kind of the exact opposite of a monolith.
Yeah.
How each letter in that equation has different goals, different ideas, even within themselves. And unfortunately, and as you go through the list, vulnerability gets magnified.
Absolutely. Yeah. You take, for example, I had a gay boss who was very radically anti-bi, anti-trans.
Yes.
Yeah. As far as I learned this term a long time ago, but I actually heard it come out of my boss's mouth while I was on the clock, where he said that bisexual people are just fence-sitting queers.
Yeah. It's like bisexual people. They face they face a lot of contrition, not just from straight people, but from gay people, because there's
it's unfortunate.
Yeah, well, it feeds into the same notion that sexuality must be binary. You either like the same sex or the different or the opposite sex, and I'm like, we've known that's been bullshit since what, the 40s, the 50s, whenever Kinsey did his studies.
It's the idea. It's the us against them philosophy. It's the idea that there's strength in numbers, so they try to lump in everybody into two groups: heteronormative and everybody else.
Right, and and trans people, they're the most vulnerable.
Yeah.
It's like, or among the most vulnerable, because then we start getting into the questioning and intersex, which is and asexuality, and so on and so forth.
which I've gotten to witness firsthand on that. Not the intersex thing, but the asexuality thing. It's very hard for a sexual person to deal with a person who does not identify with any sexuality.
Well, yeah, asexuality is the hardest to get across because, it's literally nothing. It's literally no sexuality.
It's the atheism of sexuality.
Yeah, and I'm like, it's especially daunting, as I understand it, because so much of our not just our culture, but so much of culture in general is centered around sex and kids and so on and so forth, and romance, and these people just are not interested in it.
Yeah, it I've seen a lot of things on Tumblr and stuff about people who just feel like that as asexual people, the way that modern society talks about sexuality basically makes them feel broken for not having sexual interest in anyone.
Yeah.
And then it's like, well, you just haven't met the right person yet, or you're just confused or whatever. And it's like,
well, then there's another confusing aspect, which again I was exposed to this for many years now, is the gray asexuality, where exceptions will be made for the good of the relationship. It's just I guess that's one way of putting it. I'm not sure if that's entirely proper, but it's kind of what people do.
Well, a lot of it comes down to, a lot of these issues come down to our own wiring, our own didactic thinking. Like, we are very binary creatures. I mean, from what I understand, a lot of it comes down to, how we are shaped, how, 2 hands, 2 feet kind of deal. So
everything in pairs.
Yeah. So we tend to think in those terms, and anything beyond that gets a lot more complicated.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that is the actual human experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, this show felt like a marathon. But I feel like at this point I should say good talk, before we get ourselves into any trouble.
Probably should. Like, it's 10 past midnight anyway. So.
Yeah. So, but yeah, we covered a lot of really good stuff there. I like the fact that we were able to actually have a rational discussion about this stuff without straying into our own errors.
mm-hmm.
I'm perfect. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Star Wars, so.
Well, yeah, I did segue into Star Wars, but that was kind of necessary. Although I'm going to continue to marvel at myself. Pardon the joke there, because Marvel, Star Wars, Disney. But I'm going to marvel at myself for managing to tie in a trailer to a movie I haven't even seen yet, that no one has seen yet, into our topic. So, yay me.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, Petty Fan, tell me, what's our ETA on our guest lineup again?
May 10th, we are having Jesse Cox, and there's one other party the talks aren't dead with, but they haven't confirmed either. So they're coming back from cons, so when I know more, I will let you know more. And I've still been shooting out emails, but silence.
Okay, well, keep firing. I'll come up with some more suggestions for you, so we can try to get some variety up in here. Actually, I was going to suggest that you try contacting, totally blanking on her name, from Blue Monday. I kind of blew that one when I got her information.
What's her name?
Yeah.
Well, that's probably gonna kill that interview now. Can't even remember.
It's
Thanks a
Flores
lot,
now. It's
guys.
Flores now, right?
Yeah.
Clugston
China
Flores.
Clugston Flores, yeah.
So,
I
you know,
looked-
like a penis?
No.
I love-
It's just
No,
I
we
remembered that. But then
no. Go on.
See what happens when you open the floodgates?
I know, right?
I thought we were trying to drain the swamp.
God damn it.
I looked over at the books I have. and
Why?
It's different on those.
Yeah, maybe we should end things while we're not
Still
ahead
like
anymore.
it.
Yeah, on a high low note.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll keep hacking away at this and continue trying to be better people. Although I don't have much hope for that. All right. Well, on behalf of the crew at Moonhawk Studios Presents, be looking forward to our next episode. I promise to try not to cancel any more shows this season because taxes. Now that I finally have that settled, and I'm actually getting a refund, thank God. Until next time, this is Mac Paladin on behalf of the crew at Moonhawk Studios Presents, saying thanks for listening and stay safe out there, kids.